Conclusion. The power of citizenship includes the power to demand on your own behalf, as well as on behalf of others. We align ourselves fully with the feminist collective We Are 52% and their calls for the dissolution of Parliament for its refusal to enact legislation on the not more than two-thirds gender principle. As Kenyan feminists, we recognize the political implications of these violations of the Constitution, not only because they affect women, even though that is independently important, but because they reveal the state's intent to be unbound by any law, including the Constitution. The government of Kenya, as is currently composed, executive and legislature, is illegal and illegitimate, and the violence it continues to mete out to citizens, as well as permits to be inflicted upon citizens, is a reflection of its commitment to illegality and illegitimacy. We reject all legislation enacted by unconstitutional parliaments that exist in violation of the Constitution. We also reject the decisions of multiple courts, including the Supreme Court Advisory Opinion 2 of 2012, which misinterpreted the concept of progressive realization of rights, laying a legal foundation for government inaction when it comes to implementing the Bill of Rights, especially as it relates to the rights of women, girls, youth, and persons with disabilities. Parliament ought to be dissolved, pursuant to an Article 261 advisory on dissolution from the Chief Justice, for failure to enact legislation on the not more than two-thirds gender principle, Article 81B and Article 100. Further, it is and has been unconstitutional in composition, as it is more than two-thirds male, rendering it in violation of Article 27(8), Article 81B, and Article 3. From 2013 to date, no cabinet has been constituted in compliance with a constitutional gender quota in Article 27(8). These bodies are unlawful, and they lack the legal authority to bind not just women who are unconstitutionally excluded from political representation, but all Kenyans. Restoring legality and legitimacy is integral to the elimination of femicide and other violence against women and girls, as well as the myriad violence inflicted upon Kenyan citizens. The femicide crisis exists because of the deliberate inaction and non-implementation by the state of numerous existing laws and policies. In other words, the femicide crisis exists because the state allows it to exist. Whether this is through the failure to arrest, prosecute, and punish perpetrators, or through the refusal to ensure policies and programs such as gender desks at police stations are fully functional, or through the refusal to appoint credible and competent women and men to positions of leadership, the state's central role in the increase in fatal violence against women and girls cannot be ignored. The government of Kenya's central role in increasing fatal violence is also observed in the ways in which the state is normalizing the violence against citizens. This can be seen from the use of live bullets to quell peaceful protesters exercising their constitutionally protected rights in Reject Finance Bill 2024 and Reject Finance Bill 2025 protests, to the widespread abduction, torture, and illegal detention of citizens engaged in constitutionally protected political action, from exercising their right to speech to the right to association. Kenyans have witnessed the disturbing increase of extrajudicial killings of people held in police custody, from Albert Ojwang to Julia Kariuki. We have also witnessed increased normalization of the deaths of children in their schools, from the death of 21 primary school children in the Hillside Indarasha Academy fire, with no explanation and no adult held responsible to date, to the almost monthly reports of deaths of children like 18-year-old Brenda Akinyi from curable diseases while in school custody. The state, through the Ministry of Education, has made no effort to change policies and procedures to prevent future similar incidents. Children are the most vulnerable members of our society, and as such, it stands to reason that if they are disposable to the state, all Kenyan citizens are disposable. It is not an exaggeration to say that the Kenyan state is engaged in terrorizing its own citizens. As Kenyan feminists, we want to draw a connection between the increase in fatal violence against women and girls and the state's complicity in the increased violence facing the citizens of Kenya generally. While women and girls are more vulnerable and as such more susceptible to violence, the lesson is that violence, once permissible by a state action and/or inaction, affects all citizens. None of us is safe while violence is meted out on our fellow citizens. In other words, femicide is part of the continuum of violence experienced by Kenyan citizens, and it is as unacceptable as other violence against citizens. This has become even more apparent in the last few months as politicians have escalated campaign-like activities in violation of the law, and the state has seemed to suspend governance to commence illegal and early campaigning for the 2027 general elections. We have witnessed the rise of what some refer to as goonism or goon culture, most of which culminates in violence against women and girls. During 2024 and femicide protests, as well as the Reject Finance Bill, Occupy Parliament, and Ruto Must Go June 2024 and 2025 protests, we witnessed a rise in the activities of state-sponsored, state-sanctioned, and or state-facilitated militia. These state-sanctioned and or facilitated groups, commonly referred to as goons, are not regular criminals. They are often seen carrying similar weapons, newish wooden rungus, and openly working in organized groups. Many times, they are also working with the police and state actors and are given free rein to loot and or brutalize citizens during protests and other events. This pattern of behavior is reminiscent of the 2007-2008 post-election violence and the organized manner in which groups were equipped and granted access to citizens to commit acts of terrorism and violence. Just as an uptick in femicide is an indicator of increased violence and state impunity, the rise of organized groups with almost uniform weapons is a warning sign for organized mass violence. We have been here before, and we must not think we can wish away organized violence, sanctioned and or facilitated by the state or state-adjacent actors. Increasingly, we see the use of police as well as armed, masked men to disrupt and harm citizens engaged in political and social activities. We have witnessed this violence against citizens at churches, funerals, as well as protests, political meetings, and rallies. By-elections have also witnessed extreme violence, including targeting of spouses or partners of political candidates, a particularly egregious form of gendered political violence. In some cases, we have seen the deployment of the military or military hardware during by-elections, again with the silence or acquiescence of the state and of independent institutions such as the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, Kenya National Human Rights Commission, National Gender and Equality Commission, and many others. The bottom line is that the Kenyan state is trying to normalize the illegal use of violence against citizens by state and non-state actors, and to exempt itself from its constitutional obligation to protect Kenyans. The struggle to end femicide is a struggle for the dignity and right to life of all women and girls, but it is also part of the larger struggle for the dignity and right to life of all Kenyans. The centrality of the state to the increased levels of violence we all face as Kenyan citizens is an indictment of the state. It is also a call for us to demand a restoration of constitutional order, including urgent prosecutions of police and all other state actors engaged in the violation of law and the use of violence against citizens. As Kenyan feminists, we are committed to the eradication of femicide and the culture of violence and impunity that sustains it. We are committed to the intersectional struggle for the freedom of all Kenyans because our faiths are intertwined. None of us is free until we are all free.